Hi everybody, and welcome back to yet another me drawing commissions video. I don't know what the title is officially, but it's probably not me drawing commissions. But today we are doing a long play video of me doing the pencilings for this very special commission from a good friend of mine, whose name I think they requested that they only be referred to as Dungeons and Drawing. So we'll just call them Dungeons or Drawings, or I'm not sure how we'll shorten that, but anyway, this is a character of hers that she wanted designed and drawn, and it's a pirate character, in case you couldn't tell by the, well, pirate aesthetic. I've already taken a... Oh no, hold on. Wait. I've already drawn this digitally, as you can see here, and then trace that over into pencil. I don't know if you noticed this, but it looks a lot better in pencil than it does digitally. Anyway, the goal for today, of course, is to get this penciled to the point where I am happy with it and I am ready to ink it. So, grab some popcorn, a nice drink, and come draw along with me for an hour or two. Okay, so that's as well prepared as it gets here. Okay, so of course we're using just another normal pencil of 2B variety. And I'm just going to go ahead and start kind of outlining some of the areas. I'm going to start here at this boot because I think that for some reason I've completely neglected it in the early sketch phases, or the sketch phases, and then the scanned and trace phases. I think I could draw this character out without doing all the work digitally first, but I do kind of like the speed that I get, especially since I'm recording these videos. The speed that I get from sketching it all out on computer and then doing the penciling traditionally. What you want to keep in mind, though, is obviously if you're more happy with your drawings digitally than you are, I guess, hold on. I've got music screaming at me, even though it's like very low volume on my computer. It happens pretty much every time I sit down to draw. I forget how loud I talk, or how much, you know, I'm talking, and if I keep my music up, then I talk far too loudly and it gets to be a pain to edit the audio. But as I was saying, you don't have to do all the steps that I do. In fact, if you find that you're just going to be making this like a digital painting and less of a kind of comic book style, that like what I've got going on here, then yeah, don't bother doing the pencils traditional. There's no real point in that, I guess. Or do what you want. I don't know. I guess I'm not your dad. Let me lighten this up a bit. Now you can see when I was tracing it, I got a little excited and kind of did some of the shading already. Probably should have held off on that. One, because I'm trying to show you most of my process. And for two, I think I should have been focusing on the tracing, especially on this boot here. I don't know what happened, but it is not very refined in its dimension and shape, and I'm not too happy about that. I'm very disappointed in past Ruben. Although I gotta say, it's hard to be mad during this penciling stage because I've noticed this, and I hope that you enjoy it. as the viewer. But like that sound right there, the pencil on the board and on the easel here that I've got set up, such a nice sound. Makes me happy. Hard to stay mad with that. Especially with the amount of hatching. It makes me wonder, like, if I would have, like, a different... Like, I would be more prone to doing, like, smooth tone or, like, more traditional methods of shading rather than kind of these graphic comic book styles. If smooth tone had any sound at all, because like that's the thing, when you're shading with smooth tone, it doesn't make a sound. It's just like, oh, you know, get your pencil, you know, in a circle and then smooth it out. It's like it's not as fun as hearing like the loud scratches and it's just nice. It's so nice. I remember watching I'm gonna butcher his name because I can't remember it fully. Naoki Urasawa. I might be wrong on that, but the guy who did Pluto, 20th Century Boys, Monster, some great manga anime content there. He did a show called Men Ben, and it's difficult to find as far as like to watch in America. But what it is essentially is like it's a behind the scenes look at how manga artists create their work, and they go into like the workspaces where these mangaka, I should say, are making, you know, the manga that we read today, or did at that time. Some of those lines surely have been canceled, but yeah, it's one of the things that's great about that show though is a lot of it is just like very quiet, and like the guys working on the manga, and you just hear the scratching of the pencils or the pen nibs. Very, very relaxing, and it's always, anytime I want to get back into drawing after I haven't been drawing for a long time, I'll watch Men Ben, and it's like so relaxing. I don't even need to hear what they're saying or understand. There was a point in college where I would play it while I was working, and I don't speak Japanese, so I couldn't tell you what was really going on because I didn't have the subtitles on at all, but I just would listen to, you know, them working, and the tone of their voice, their excitement for what they did, and the craft. Just there's something about that, and that's something that I hope that everyone can find a sense of belonging, community, if not in person, then maybe digitally through the wonderful, terrible world of the internet. Finding a artist or creator whose work just inspires you. So here I'm going a little bit nuts with the texture, but I think what I want to do is I want to have this big area where the cloak is flowing. I want it to be... I don't want it to seem empty, so I want to add as much texture as I can here. So then when I go in with the inking, I'll probably wind up blacking out like some of these areas, but I want to keep some of this hatching like available so I can see kind of when I come in here, it's like, this is what it looks like with hatching, but you know, maybe that's not what I want to do, but maybe it could be. Just giving myself options in the future, trying to be a little nice to myself later. So this pirate character is, I think, his name is not fully worked out yet because I think his story is still kind of being fleshed out. But the last name that I heard was Captain Nimbus. And Dungeons and Drawings, if you're watching this and his name is no longer that, I apologize. Such a fun idea for a character, because what Dungeons and Drawings wanted me to do with this was kind of come up with your classic, one step ahead, always planning villain for, this character. And so, can you see what I'm doing? Yes, you can. Okay. So I think his whole deal is like he's like one of the, main captains of like a mercenaries, almost like guild, but he basically is like all but king of the sea. And everyone kind of owes him something, so he can call in favors at any time, and he's kind of a kingmaker. And that's why, like, I have him holding this chess piece here with like the skull and crossbones and the crown, so like it kind of hints at like his pirate background, but then also his mental capacity and his planning, and how his brain is his true strength. Although he's very good with a blade, I really wanted to show off how he's kind of a tactician. He's really good at manipulating. So I went with this pose that kind of shows that off, I hope. And I think this was like a really challenging one for me, because I believe it or not, I've got another pirate that I've got to draw for a commission, and it's a very active pirate. Like he's less cerebral than this captain. He's not thinking about what he's doing, he's just doing it. And there's nothing wrong with either characters. It's just like generally when you're drawing like comic characters, or like kind of like what I'm doing here, which is kind of like in a comic book cover kind of format, you generally want to show that character in action or in some sort of scenario that shows off their physical abilities. But when you've got a character like this, or like say Charles Xavier or something like that, or Dr. Doom, and they're more the more of your either conniving villains or smart, intelligent characters, it's difficult sometimes to figure out how to pose them in a way that makes them seem cool and interesting. But I feel like adding that prop, the chess piece, was something that really kind of gave some life to this. And we had talked about the character quite a bit, I and the original creator of the character, and they had mentioned, this idea that he had, he could call in favors at any time, because, basically everybody owed him, because he was just absolutely everywhere on the sea, and as a pirate, he's kind of controlling your fate, whether you make it back to port or not. So maybe he's controlling shipping routes, or affecting, who gets what and whatnot, stuff like that. So I like that idea, and I was like, well, what if he's got like a chess piece, he's like a chess player, where he's thinking moves ahead before anyone else. So then when he shows up, it's completely unexpected. And working with Dungeons and Drawings, they were like, yeah, that's a good idea. So we went with that. And that's always fun to get to collaborate and think of, you know, kind of the visual storytelling of your character and see how that contributes to the narrative of where they come from and what they'll become as the visuals begin to materialize. So this character is like very almost stereotypical villain in like a comedic way. So like he's not like a complete idiot, but like at the same time like he's also kind of a take on like that mustache twirling villain. So he's not to be taken like, I guess, too seriously. I think that just comes with the nature of the story that Dungeons and Dragons has for this character. Every time I said not Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Drawings. I wish I was working for Dungeons and Dragons. Wizards of the Coast, I should say. Although I know that they've been making some rather unfortunate decisions as it relates to their players and some of their properties. I know that, you know, I've already talked about and ranted about D&D 2025, which was formerly known as 1D&D. I don't know, like, how much of that is gonna stick, though. Because initially it was like, this is gonna be the definitive D&D. Like, after this, there's no more, like, new additions. There's no Pathfinder. There's no, 5e. There's no 6e. It's just, it's just 1D&D. And that was, like, their big thing. And then they changed that. And they changed pretty much everything that they said they were going to make for 1D&D when they released the official, like, manual and whatnot. And, rather upset some people. Myself included on some of those things. Not, like, everything. I'm not a big rules guy when it comes to TTRPGs anyway. Like, as far as, like, I don't fuss over, oh man, they got rid of, this or that or whatever, or they totally nerfed my build. If you know me in real person, like in real life, you'll know that, like, it's the absolute opposite of how I am. I absolutely hate trying to figure out how to make a build or how to, quote unquote win at D&D. It's not the point. It's about collaborative storytelling, obviously. But what did kind of, rock my boat was some of the things that they did with some of the lore and some of the things that they decided to do with, like, they decided to have species instead of races, which some of that I think I can kind of see. A lot of it I was very unhappy with how it was handled, because I feel like it should have been something much more fun to the players and less restrictive than what it was, and I don't think that's what happened. And I think any time that, like, especially as a game, whether a video game or a board game, or even, like, something that you've supported on Kickstarter as a small, maybe card game. Anytime that that game makes a decision that is restrictive to the player's experience in a non-fun way, like in a way that just like restricts the storytelling or restricts the like spirit of the game. That's no good. And I feel like some of the choices that they've made have been against the spirit of the game and the spirit of storytelling, and that's very unfortunate. And that's, you know, that's where the politics will come out, and people will say, well, this or that, the other, and, you know, I'm not saying that, like, I'm gonna ignore all of that. Quietly observe, more likely, because there's no point jumping in and freaking out about it. Although, if you watch this, you know that I rant quite a bit. But I will say that, like, when it comes to just in general, I'm a pretty firm believer of letting the players and the DM or the you know, whatever game you're playing that's a storytelling game, letting that be, you know, in their hands as much as possible, because I think that's such a beautiful relationship that, you know, the players and the planners of the games, whether a games master, a DM, or whoever's running the game, like, that's such a fun thing to have, and to take that away in any way is just absolutely diabolical, and I don't think it's right. So, anyway, all that to say, I'm not working for Dungeons and Dragons. I would still like to work for them. Don't get me wrong. But this is for Dungeons and Drawings, my good friend. A friend of mine who taught me a lot about painting and color back when I was struggling very hard in college. It was such a rough time for me. I'm thinking of one year in particular where I was definitely at my worst, just mentally and physically, and everything was getting just thrown out of whack, because I couldn't figure out how to paint. And basically what happened was my academic advisor had screwed up my entire semester because they didn't see fit to have me take the color theory class before painting. So I went into the painting class, and I almost failed because I couldn't figure out how to mix colors, because up to that point I hadn't done anything related to, you know, really colors at all, other than like painting a house, which isn't very artistic. I mean, I guess you can get artistic with it, but I wasn't. So when we finally got, you know, down to the problem where we're realizing, okay, what my problem is, then I could, you know, go to my classmates and be like, okay, here's my problem. Can you please help me, like, catch up? Because I had, like, 2 projects left. And if I didn't pass those 2 projects, then I would have to take painting again, and I would be behind. And I was a double major, which means that, like, I couldn't really fail anything because I was taking, like, 18 credit hours. I was working, and this class was, you know, only available during a certain time, and I really didn't want to have to stay for 5 years in college. So, Dungeons and Drawings, I keep wanting to say their real name, but I was requested to not, so I won't. But they were one of the people that really, really helped me out, because they're very good, very, very good at painting. If you see any of their stuff on their Instagram or any of their socials, absolutely go support them. one of my favorite people to see create. Really wish they would do, like, you know, a collaboration maybe, hint hint, on like a comic, hint hint, or like, you know, an illustration, hint 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 of some sort. They're gonna hate me for that, but who cares? I don't know if I could keep up with Dungeons and Drawings if we did collaborate. That could get rough. Some serious skills there. Some amazing art talent. Somebody that, like, I love seeing when they create. They've been kind of going through a rough patch now, which is unfortunate, but I've been getting back into creating recently, and I've just been so excited to see that. They're one of the people that constantly challenged me to do better. Not because they, you know, they weren't one of those people that would come up to me and, like, make me feel bad about my art. They're actually the exact opposite. Very, very encouraging, very nice. But just because of how they worked and how well they were able to, you know, make it, like, because they, you know, they would get A's all the time. They made amazing work. It was very appealing to everybody, regardless of, you know, what the theme or medium was. That was always, like, not like frustrating to me, but in a way it was like, it was always challenging to me in a good way, to where I was like, oh, I'm gonna get it this time. You know, not that I wanted to beat them per se, but I wanted to be able to compete. And that's been like something that I took away from college is not having to beat somebody, because, you know, great, you beat them. What do you gain? I think what's more important is competing with somebody on the same level, to where you're both sparking off of each other and both, you know, creating great things and being inspired by each other to be better makers and to be better, you know, painters or sculptors or whatever you are. And having that kind of almost rivalry is such a great thing to have. There was a lot of people that I knew like that. There's this one girl that was absolutely fantastic and still is at painting and illustration, and we would go over to her desk a lot of times, and she was like not big into talking to people, but we would always like kind of like show up and be like, hi, how's it going? And it was, I feel like we kind of invaded her personal space a little bit, and maybe she wasn't super comfortable with us being over there, but we were just too, you know, enamored with her stuff not to go over and to talk with her. Very, very talented person. I believe she's working as an illustrator now. I don't know, to be completely honest. But Dungeons and Drawings, I believe, has done some illustration work and whatnot. I think that's the main thing that they've been known for. I'm not sure where they're at right now with planning some of that out. Like I said, it's been sadly a bit of a rough patch for them, but I think they'll bounce back anytime, or they have bounced back, I should say, and they're well on their way to being just a powerful force of inspiration and drawing as they were before. No doubt. remember seeing, I think it's Karl Kopinski, one of my favorite, you know, artists and illustrators from college recently. He wasn't in my college, but during my college days, I looked up his work with great, you know, awe and admiration. He had a stroke a while back, and he's actually beginning to recover. And somehow I missed the original announcement that he had a stroke. I just hadn't seen anything from him for a while. And then I thought about it, and I went to his page and like realized, you know, what I had missed, and I felt really bad about that. But I think he had a stream a few weeks ago where he was drawing again, and I was so happy to see that. A stroke or a heart attack? I believe it was a stroke. Yeah, I think it was a stroke. And that's very, very scary as an artist to go through something like that medically or physically, where, you know, you're knocked on your back and you don't think about it, but like, you know, we often spend so much time nowadays worrying about our mental health as artists, and that's very good to do, because I mean, we're in solitude for so long working on these projects, and our minds can wander and go dark places, but you got to take care of your physical self as well. You got to make sure to get out and exercise, and make sure to I'm not the pinnacle of health by any means, but that's something that I think is very important to keep in mind, is to keep yourself healthy. But, you know, even if you're healthy, sometimes, yeah, stuff can happen to you, the accidents and whatnot. And so when that does, it's very, very scary, and it's easy to be like, you know, it's easy to give up, and it's very, very hard to keep going and to see yourself, you know, getting back into drawing. Like, we think it's difficult coming back, you know, from drawing, coming back to drawing after, you know, taking like a week off, or maybe, you know, hitting a block, an artist block, or a creative slump. But imagine how hard it would be to come back from like having a stroke where like I believe it's the right side of your body, or like a whole portion of your body no longer responds to you. That's just, it's absolutely devastating to think about. Even more devastating to you know, go through. So to see Karl Kopinski, you know, go through that, but then basically continue to try to express himself as great inspiration. So really, really hope he gets back up on his feet, and I hope he continues his recovery. Happy little breaking of my pen there. Pencil, sorry, not pen. I think I'm going a little too heavy on some of my penciling here, but I think it's alright. I think if I overwork it in the penciling stage, it'll just be that much easier in the inking stage. I hope. I think Frank Cho, he's got some great videos on penciling. One of the things he says a lot is, you know, this is the stage for erasing. Don't feel like, oh man, I made a mistake, I'm erasing, ugh, I'm behind now, or, you know, such a failure. No. This is what that stage is for. Erasing and then figuring out how you want your final product to look. I couldn't agree more. I will say that definitely in the past and even in the present, I've struggled with, going too fast, not taking my time with my work, and not taking my time with my drawings, and just kind of pushing myself to create rather than enjoying the creation process and enjoying the fun that it is to be an artist. And I get lost sometimes in the deadlines or in the expectations that I have for myself, the speed that I want to draw at, because that's what I've seen other artists do, or other professionals whose level I'm not yet at. And I think that's a trap that I fall into often. I'm sure others do as well. But I think it's something that if you let that go and you let yourself, take your time, you let yourself really enjoy the process and enjoy, discovering slowly that drawing that's hidden somewhere in your lines, that's just such a great feeling. I don't think that there's any feeling quite like that in any other field or any other hobby or any other job. It doesn't matter what level you enjoy art. Taking your time and making that art yours and making that art fully what you want it to be, there's something very special about that. This coat's gonna be the death of me. I can just feel it. When I go to ink this, it's just gonna be an absolute nightmare. I mean, I hope it's not, but I feel like it's gonna be. But it's got such nice motion. I think the coat has really added to just the flow. The eye flow between, the chest piece up here down to his eyes, which kind of go back to the piece. And then here we've got the crow here on his shoulder. I don't know what the crow's name is. I should have asked. And then we can kind of flow down here, which takes us to the bottom of the page with this nice, coat. That's billowing in the wind, and there's little, it's not perfect. There's little bits of dirt and grime and holes and whatnot, and I love that. I love adding that. But I'm sure that when it comes to inking it later, I'm just gonna be like, with the coat. It's just something I'm gonna have to get over. A lot of times when I'm working here on say these belts, I'm breaking new ground and new shapes because I don't like what I've done. And I want it to be, go a different direction, or maybe have a different style to the clothing or how the lighting's, you know, hitting the material, or the type of you know, accessory or other part, you know. Here I'm not going to change too much about like the pose at this stage. I've worked long enough on that on the computer, but I do want all the elements that I have here to harmonize. So a lot of times when I'm, you know, changing something like here, these belts, or some of the wrinkles and some of the things on the coat, a lot of that's just like these smaller elements, or these elements that aren't related to the overall drawing itself. They're pieces of the overall drawing, but they're not like the bigger compositional elements. They're the small details, and this is a good time to figure some of those out before you go into inking. And I think inking is just a finishing stage. It's not really one that you want to explore too much with, although you can, and indeed I guess you should, because inking is very, very expressive and very, very different from person to person. But you don't, like, if you're going for nice clean shapes and like you're not particularly skilled in inking, don't just, like, you know, half draw your character and then expect inking to save it. Inking does not save drawings. It doesn't destroy drawings. Bad decisions destroy drawings. Bad decisions like, you know, rushing through the penciling stage, or not taking your time with the sketching or the design phase. You know, the difference is inking is permanent, and that's why people a lot of times don't like inking, because it's a monument to their sins of rushing or procrastinating or otherwise not, you know, taking their time. And I won't, you know, say that there's plenty of problems that can go with the inking phase as well. It takes a lot of practice to get used to it, but it is still, I feel like, just something if you keep in mind and you take your time, you know, preparing for beforehand with your drawing, you'll have a lot less problems. And your inking will significantly improve. So when it comes to drawing hands, there's a very useful tool that I have that you don't have to get, but it's pretty cool. And it's this little hand that I got from, actually it's a 1-to-1 scale posable hand that I got from AliExpress, actually. And say what you will about AliExpress and Temu and those other places, and you're right most of the time. But when it comes to purchasing props like this, as long as the price isn't too low, because generally that speaks to the quality, You can usually find stuff that you can't get in the States, or you know, is too expensive in the States. What I really, really like about this is that the fingers compose very, very organically. You can even remove the fingernails, which is very fun, except for it looks like you're torturing somebody. Ripping off their fingernails. But what I think my favorite part is that the palm collapses. And I have another hand somewhere around here, but the palm doesn't do that. And having, you know, these joints here really, really helps with that, and really helps with like mentally posing or thinking through different ways of making the hand work for you when it comes to drawing. So when I was drawing this hand, I went ahead and I posed it out, and that's his left hand as opposed to the right hand. So what I did was, I think I had it like so, and then I took a picture of it and then inverted it and then drew that hand. But so I can take this and I can look at it and kind of see, okay, so the knuckles, the first knuckles are going to be right here, whereas like here we're going to see all the way to the end of the finger. So we can kind of taper that like so. We can lighten some of our shading. And it's a very handy tool. And don't, again, I don't know who it is that is like, oh, you know, artists don't use reference, or, you know, you shouldn't use reference. Yeah, those people can go play in traffic, because reference is so helpful and makes your life so much better. And like pretty much every pro artist I have met uses some form of reference, whether it's live models, whether it's ecrochets or sculpture or, you know, books. Everyone uses reference. So I don't know who in your life maybe is telling you not to do that, but here's my permission to completely ignore them. So there you go. I know you were waiting on that before you made that important decision in your life. Most of the people that I hear say, you know, oh, you don't need references, or that you shouldn't have references, are people that don't draw, so, or paint, or do anything creative. Kind of invalidates their argument when you realize that, oh wait, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. Now, some people I guess I've met some artists that aren't as adamant about their references. That's usually because they're like just very, very skilled and very, very naturally gifted at observation, and that in itself is a reference. That's something that they've learned how to do, or they haven't had to learn how to do because their mind art does that for them. So it doesn't make sense when you're collecting all these photos and, you know, these props and things to look at while you work, because to them they're like, yeah, if I want to draw a tree, I just think of a tree. They're what we call prodigies, or naturally gifted people, and we hate them. Not really. They're just very different from us, and they work a little different, and they're not as, you know, they're held back in different ways for sure, but, you know, just not the one way that most of us seem to struggle with. I say us, I'm not trying to ostracize them or threaten them. But there's a old joke that I used to say, and I'm like, you know, I don't hate anybody except for if you're ambidextrous, or you're naturally good at drawing, or have perfectly straight teeth. Then I hate you. I knew a couple of people who fit into those categories in my friend groups, and they'd be like, Like you. But no, we're still friends. It's all good. All right. Almost done, I'd say. With this half, we obviously have to do the top bit here. Let's try this hat. For stuff like weathered clothes, like if you're drawing a pirate like this, or if you're drawing like someone who's like, you know, maybe from Star Wars or from any kind of setting where their clothes are well used, or even if it's like a robot that's, you know, not fresh off the shelf, you don't have to have perfect lines. You can add in little variations like here, this divot here in the hat, or little pock marks from where there's been damage or just use. And that's just much more realistic than having a perfect, you know, hat or a perfect robot or anything like that. Only issue comes from if you're making comics where consistency is involved, because as soon as you're like, there's a, you know, dent here, there's a rip here, there's, you know, something like that, as soon as you add that to the design, you have to keep track of it. And most of the time the most natural looking damage is always asymmetrical, so now you've got to keep track of where it is on the body. You've got to, you know, like that's something I run into a lot with, like when I'm giving wounds to my characters. It's just like, all right, cool, they received this wound, and then I'm like, crap, now they've got to have that wound for the rest of the comic. Great, good job. And that's just something that you want to keep in mind, and don't like, oh well, I just won't ever draw wounds ever, you know, don't do that, but maybe find a way to get around having to repeat that, you know, every time. And when you're designing, try to keep in mind that, okay, if I have this element, it will add a level of complexity to my design. And that's not bad, it's just generally makes your design a little bit more complex to keep track of, as opposed to one that's like symmetrical. That's why, like, superheroes in the old comics, they all wore like these skin tight super suits, because they were symmetrical and they hugged the frame of the superhero. And part of that was because of like the bodybuilders and the athletes that they were mimicking, or kind of like almost idolizing at that time, and turning into these mythical characters. And part of that's also because it was very, very easy, if you're a comic book artist, to just draw the human form and then add, like, you know, a line for the sleeves or a line for the neck, and then, okay, there's Mr. Fantastic, there's Spider-Man, there's, you know, whatever. So now you have a simple version of a character to draw that you can draw over and over again that's symmetrical. And a lot of times I hear people, you know, complain about thus and so, about, you know, oh, well, why don't they have more interesting designs, or why isn't this way, or whatever. And I'm like, well, when you're sitting down, you have to draw a character 1,000 times, you know, for your comic, and then, you know, you've got an asymmetrical design element, or you've got a, you know, something that's super complex. You know, you don't want to do that. You want to try to keep it as simple as possible. I'm not the king of that. if you look at like Death's Favorite Daughter, the characters for that, like Efeldrin has like is very much asymmetrical in her entire design. She's very complicated to draw as far as like keeping her consistent, and just in general, she's like a contradiction, and that's why I love writing for her, but drawing her sometimes can be a pain, because like I wrote her obviously as a character that's kind of like one of the first things that I came up with for like her character was like the idea that she's kind of like a take on like maybe one of those like heavy metal cover girls, or like a Frank Frazetta painting, where it's like this warrior woman, and like, you know, like in Frank Frazetta's work, you would have like these skimpily dressed women with gigantic swords and stuff like that. I'm like, what if I took that idea and kind of gave that character like some dimension and some feeling and some things that they had to go through, rather than just being, you know, challenged in a normal way. And so, you know, writing for that character and is very, very fun, but when I was designing it, I definitely had like those characters in mind that are like very, very exaggerated and very exciting. But what I failed to do was do myself any favors when it came time to design a Efeldrin, because I was like, ah, yes, she'll have one sleeve that is armored, then, you know, the other will not be. She'll have tattoos all over her body, and they will glow. She'll have, you know, and just on and on and on. I just kept making more and more things that were poor decisions as far as like from a design standpoint. If I had been a little smarter with it, maybe I would have simplified her design, but I also doubt that, because I'm rather hard-headed when it comes to my characters, and if I'm very happy with their design, it's difficult for me to let go of that and to try new things. That's not to say that like I won't. I've definitely been able to have valuable critique with friends and colleagues to help me make, you know, great characters and great designs. But at the same time, I also know myself, and there's a large part of myself that's like, but it looks so good, you know, and part of like the creative process is breaking, you know, symmetry a lot of the times, because you want to bring that dynamic element into your drawings and into your characters. But it's also adds a level of complexity. And that's good for like illustrations. It's not great for when you're gonna draw that character again and again and again. So I'm happy here that I get to illustrate this character, Captain Nimbus, as complex as I want him. But that's only because I'm not going to have to draw him in a comic. Really happy with how this is actually turning out. I didn't think this would go as smoothly as it is. I was looking at it before my lines that I had put down. I was looking at them before I turned the camera on. I was just like, ugh. Let's see if we can make anything, you know, anything out of it. I mean, I was still happy with the design. I was happy with like generally what I was looking at, but at the same time, I was like, ugh. I don't want to destroy the character, obviously, and I don't want to waste anybody's time with terrible drawings as far as like recording and being entertaining goes. There's a certain level that I have where I've kind of begun to develop this sense of like, okay, yes, it's my process, or yes, it's, you know, a part of art, but is it entertaining? Or can I be entertaining while doing it? And some of that, like, is important, and then other aspects I'm like, I don't care. I just need to draw. And if it's not entertaining, then it's okay. You know, I'll make the video and people will either like it or they won't. It's okay. It's not in your face, obviously, but it's also not like a crutch or something that cripples my ability to work. Oh, I love that lighting. Oh, it's going to be tough to do in ink in a nice, delicate way, but I like it a lot. So fun. Time to do the bird, and in my opinion, the bird is the most difficult part because I am bad at drawing animals. I am looking forward to the day where I finally understand how animal anatomy works, at least a little better than I do now, because for some reason, usually artists go through stages. They draw eyes, they draw, you know, stick figures when they're young, and then as they, you know, become teenagers, they draw like some generic like anime characters, eyes, and then usually that's when they get into like horses or something like that. Usually a little bit before that, I guess, technically. Or they start drawing animals because they're, you know, at school, and you know, you can't draw anime at school because it's not actually, you know, art, so they choose animals instead. And I never did that, mostly because I didn't go to school, and secondly because like I didn't draw animals, I just drew people. I was copying a lot of video games artwork, mostly the Batman Arkham series at the time, because I loved how the characters were designed in this realistic way, and I wanted to learn how to draw like that, which was kind of dumb of me because little did I know that like that was like 3D sculpted and whatnot, so like it wasn't great practice, but it, you know, it wasn't bad practice either because I did learn how to observe, and I learned how to copy very well, which helped me later. But none of those things were animals. So when I got to school and they're like, all right, it's time to, you know, we're doing a project where you're painting animals or where you're drawing animals, I'm like, oh no. Because like in my head I could see like the human anatomy and I kind of knew where to start. But with animals, I've never been able to really picture where to start. So like the whole process is just completely thrown off for me every time. With everything except for frogs. And I'll explain why. For frogs, I don't know why, but like they just have like the simplest shapes to me. And they're just fairly easy to draw. And I also taught this class where there was like, I think I had 5-6 students. And they were all like, I think the oldest one was like 11. But on average they were on the younger side. And I was teaching them like perspective and all these like serious art concepts because probably I wasn't a great teacher, and didn't realize that they just want to have fun with drawing. So one of the things that like I told them was like, okay, well, we can draw like anything you want if we do all of our work and all of the homework, and I won't give you homework if we get through the lesson. So we'd get through the lesson, and I'm like, all right, what are we drawing? And they're like, we're gonna draw a frog. I'm like, okay, let's draw a frog. So I would show them how to draw a frog step by step, and I did that for like almost every week because I always wanted to draw a different frog. So I had to like look up different like bullfrogs, tree frogs, like all that. So like I wound up drawing frogs every week for like 10 weeks, and then at that time I remember I was writing the Witchborn comic, and I needed like this race to live in the swamp. They needed a race of characters. I'm like, they're all frogs. And so like I have these hybrid frog characters, and they were very easy to draw because I had already drawn like 1,000,002 frogs in class, and it was such a fun experience. I do kind of miss that class. Alright. Getting close to the end here, where I'm happy. There we go. Right. I think that's gonna do it. Honestly, I'm very happy with this. Let me hold this up to the camera a little bit. But here you can see we've gotten the pencils figured out, a little more fleshed out, so that when we go into the inking, that we'll know where we want the highlights and the shadows. So I think I'm gonna call this one done, which is surprising because it's only been, I think, about an hour or two. Oh my goodness, just an hour and 9 minutes. So thank you so much for watching. There will be an inking this drawing very, very soon, so look forward to that. I hope that you have a great day. I hope this has been educational or relaxing to you, and go make something awesome.